So if you're an aspiring filmmaker trying to figure out how to break into this business, chances are you're feeling a little bit lost or overwhelmed because frankly, there is no clear roadmap. I mean, every filmmaker's journey looks different. That said, there is one common pattern that I've noticed, and that is that many successful filmmakers actually start their careers by making a low budget feature film. So now the question becomes, how the hell do you make a feature film? Well, in this video, I've edited a mini documentary of one of my favorite success stories, and that is the story of Gareth Edwards. Before going on to direct Hollywood epics like Jurassic World Rebirth, Star Wars Rogue One, Godzilla, and The Creator, Gareth Edwards started his career by making a tiny sci-fi feature debut called Monsters in 2010, and he practically made this film by himself with just a tiny crew. So I've scoured the internet and compiled a bunch of interviews and archival clips to help tell the story of how this film got made step by step. I'm actually in the process of making my own feature film right now, and these steps have been very helpful to me, so I hope they'll be helpful to you as well, and maybe even inspire you to get your own feature film calling card off the ground. Quick copyright note, I do not own any of the materials in this video, and I'm not monetizing it. It's simply meant to be an educational tool, and all credits as well as links to any full interviews that I've used will be in the description below if you want to go check those out. But in the meantime, let's dive into how Gareth Edwards made Monsters.
Monsters is a low-budget, post-apocalyptic road movie in which the world has been invaded by aliens. Gareth Edwards wrote, shot and directed the film,
rapidly becoming the David to the Goliath of the Hollywood special effects industry.
The response has been great. I can't quite believe it. I still think I'm going to wake up and be back 2 years ago before we started filming. Basically, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, like ever since I was a fetus. Saw Star Wars, I don't remember seeing it for the first time, but wanted to join the Rebel Alliance and blow up the Death Star. And then found out it wasn't true, it's all a lie, created by people called filmmakers, so I thought, well, the second best option is to become one of those. When I was a kid, we went on holiday and my dad bought a video camera, and I quickly stole it and started making little short films with my friends, and I was so used to just picking up the camera and making a film within like a day that when I went to film school, it was a real shock to the system because it was less about the ideas and the storytelling and much more about the equipment and all the logistics and the money and everything. And so I was kind of determined to there must be a better way of making films than this is insane. And I happened to be living with a guy who was studying this new thing called computer animation.
The outright cost of producing computer animated films is going to go down. And when that happens, you start to get really cool, independent, often bizarre visions of animated stuff.
And it just opened my eyes, basically, and it seemed like it would be the solution to everything that I was finding a problem in terms of how you make a film. So you graduate, you make a short film, and then you think Hollywood's going to call you up and give you a movie deal, and it just doesn't happen, or it didn't for me. And so I bought a computer, got really into debt, and just started learning the software, because I thought, well, this isn't going to fall out of the sky, no one's going to give me the opportunity, I've got to do this myself. And so I just learned how to do visual effects to help my own filmmaking, and then just got basically sidetracked in this 5-year career doing visual effects, mainly for TV. And then essentially what I did was bribe my way into directing again by saying to producers, if you let me direct a TV show, I will do the visual effects for free or very, very cheap. And eventually they let me.
We're just getting reports of a volcanic explosion.
Great thing is that when you do visual effects, you can double the look of your film. So all these little TV programs I was doing that looked like they were very little money, looked like they were much more expensive. And very quickly, I managed to climb my way up the ladder. I played this horrible game on IMDb where I'd look at all my heroes and kind of do the maths on their date of birth and when their debut film was, and sort of go, okay, Spielberg did Jaws at 27, okay, I've got till I'm 27 and I've got to do my film, and then I'd go past that point. Okay, Ridley Scott did his first when he was 35, okay, I can at least like do the same as Ridley, and then just kept missing these milestones. So just got to a point where it was like, if I just don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. The fear of it failing was less than the fear of never trying. And when I hit that moment, it was like, I just got to do it no matter what happens. And so I was just always hunting for what would be a good debut film where you could shoot a lot of it in camera, but you could stick certain things in the computer and create a world. And there's some obvious things that spring to mind, and a monster movie is one of them. Then I was on holiday and these fishermen were pulling something in from the ocean into their boat, and I thought, okay, imagine a monster on this. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, what if a monster movie begins where most monster movies normally end, when life, carries on? And once I had that idea, it just clicked. And I thought this could be a really easy way to make a cheap film that is high concept and, got a lot of production value.
And I basically was about to do this Discovery Channel show, and I kind of got fired from it because they wanted someone with more experience at directing. And as a sort of consolation prize, the producers said, you should get an agent. I know someone, you should go meet with them. And it was Amanda, who did become my agent. I showed him a show reel and I talked about what I wanted to do. Like, look, I think you can make films really cheap, digital cameras, home computers, there's something here. And she said, well, you should talk to Vertigo, which was a film production company in the UK. And they make very low budget movies and they take punts on young new filmmakers and just see what they think about it all. And so I went in there and I pitched like 3 movies ideas. And there was one they liked, which was the Monsters one. And they said, okay, let's do it. And I was so paranoid that they were lying and it wasn't going to actually happen. I was like, can you promise me we'll be shooting on a particular date and we're not going to stretch this out over a year or 2? And they said, yeah, what date do you want to pick? And I realized that I ran out of money in 3 months. And so I just picked 3 months away, because then I'll get paid again. And then stupidly, then we had to write the script, plan the entire movie, set everything up in 3 months.
I think when you're telling a story for the cinema, you want to tell a universal story. You want to pick something that everyone can associate with and understand. And one of the main goals you can have is to get back home, is a journey home. So essentially at the heart of the film are these 2 people, and one of them is a war photographer, and he's covering the events that are happening in Central America about these creatures. And he has to go, and he doesn't want to, but he has to go and get his boss's daughter and get her back home. And I thought to myself, well, in this story, they're obviously going to start off as strangers and potentially grow closer as the journey goes. And so there was a choice between, do you have people who really don't know each other and they can act the strangers really well, but is the chemistry going to work? Or do you have people with genuine chemistry? And I really wanted the genuine chemistry to be up on screen, and so I was adamant that whoever we got would be a real couple. And it just so happened that Vertigo were distributing a film called In Search of a Midnight Kiss, starring Scoot McNairy. And I watched this and I just thought, this guy's amazing. We contacted him, and he happened to have a girlfriend who was an actress. And then I met her, and she's so down to earth and lovable. It was like, if I get these 2 to agree to do this, then that's our biggest problem solved. Vertigo greenlit the film. 3 months later, I had a script and we were out there filming. I mean, having never written a script properly before, what I wrote was a paragraph for each scene. There's physical things that happen to the characters, and then there's emotional things. And I guess normally you'd bolt them together. Like you'd say, oh, you have that conversation about this when you're in the bus station or something. And for me, it was like, well, I don't know if the bus station is going to be too claustrophobic or it's going to be too empty, to have an intimate conversation. And so what I did is I kept them separate, so that basically I printed on black ink the physical things that happen to the characters, and then on blue ink the emotional things. And then what happened is we'd be driving around Central America in a van, like a tiny crew. It was basically me and the sound man and the 2 actors, Scoot and Whitney, and we were in the van driving around with the line producer and the translator, jumping in and out of a van. And we'd see a cool location and we'd jump out, pick a scene that could work, that was physical things, and then we'd look through the emotional things that we could bring up that felt appropriate.
How old do you think that girl was? 4, 5 years old?
And we'd say, okay, well, let's do this scene, and we'd have a conversation, and we wouldn't have dialogue written necessarily. It would be just a conversation between me and the actors about what the scene's about, and then let them just freestyle it, and I'd shoot the crap out of it. And then we'd we'd just go, anyone here speak English? And we'd pull people from this that were passing. What's great, or what I learned, is that basically you can get a brilliant performance out of non-actors as long as you don't tell them what to say or do. because everyone is a brilliant actor at themselves. And so you just tell them the situation and you give them some parameters, and then it was up to Scoot and Whitney, the actors, to get these performances out of them, and they did an incredible job. I mean, there's one guy in there that's a ticket seller, and he should win a Central American Oscar for his performance. He's fantastic, and he just works in the cafe over the road.
Yesterday I paid you $5,000.
Yesterday.
No, yesterday I paid you $5,000.
Yesterday. Today, not possible.
What do you mean there's no possible? You tell me there's no more ferries here.
Okay, what about by land?
You want to go to the factory zone?
No.
Hey.
No.
Yes,
No.
I do.
I feel like the believability of the world is mainly because Guatemala and Mexico and Belize and Costa Rica and all these places we went to are real places, and it doesn't look like a green screen approach. It looks like these people are really going about their lives, and I think that really helped the movie. All I did was change little bits, like the signs, all the signage in the film, like use Photoshop, and so instead of like a hamburger menu, it's a map of the infected zone. And so you just change these little details, but you get for free, you get all this random texture and real reality that happens when you travel to an exotic location.
I honestly believe that if we had more crew members than we did, we just had a handful of people, it would have been a worse film. I think the fact that we could go in and out of these places and go unnoticed and no one really paying attention, and we could get all these stuff and all these people and all this background detail, and it would look completely authentic because life was just continuing as normal.
We edited for about 8 months in total because we had all this random kind of very sort of documentary style footage in that it wasn't the same take over and over.
As a result, I would end up with like an hour of a scene of completely different stuff. And so it became really difficult for me and the editor, Colin, to kind of get this down to what would be 2 minutes on screen. In the end, we were sort of spoilt for choice, I feel. Like, we had so many good things. It was like, how do we get this? Our first cut of the film was 4.5 hours. How do we get that down to the 90 minutes we wanted it to be? And most of our edit was just trying to crunch those 4.5 hours down to 90 without losing all this magic that we thought we had.
And it becomes like this game of Jenga where you're pulling things out, you're mainly taking away and hoping the thing doesn't collapse. And there was a lot of combinations. We'd take things out, it wouldn't work. We'd put them back in, we'd take something else out. And it was this little game we would play. And every 2 weeks, I think, we would show the producers at Vertigo the latest version. They would say a bunch of stuff. We'd go back for 2 weeks, do some more stuff. And we just kept doing this for months and months. And I thought, oh, this is never going to end. Like, they hate it. Like, no one's going to release this. Suddenly one day you got a text saying, fantastic, it's locked. You've done it. And then I had 6 months to do all the visual effects.
I think every stage of the film was very hard, and one of the ones that would be fighting for the hardest stage of the film would be the creature design. It was so important to get it right. As soon as they said, yeah, let's do this, every spare moment when I was on the phone or when I was traveling, I would doodle a creature design. And if I liked it, I'd put it in my bag and keep it. And when it came around to actually sitting and doing the effect shots, I probably had 2,000 designs, and I cherry-picked my favourite ones and I put them on a board and I brought them in. It was kind of like a strange beauty queen competition where I showed the producers all these different designs, and in the end they were just like, there's too many choices, so which one do you want? And I was like, well, this is the one I hoped you would pick, and they were like, yeah, let's go with that.
In terms of visual effects, it was 5 months of visual effects work. There was 250 shots in the film. I had to do them all sort of from home.
Gareth.
How you doing?
Oh, Kermode, how are you? So this is it. This is the spacious studio, or, as it's better known, your bedroom.
I basically worked backwards and gone, I've got 250 effect shots to do. So I can't remember the maths now, but it was like something like at least a shot a day, if not more. And so every day I wake up and I try and do a shot, try and do another shot. And as long as I'm sticking to that basic schedule, then I'm going to be okay.
Okay, so you've got these original designs, right? So then you go to the computer and...
So essentially there is software like this where it's more like clay. So it's a lot more like being an artist, in terms of you can just push and pull points just by painting in a sense. So very quickly you can start creating a rough shape of something.
What happened is I got to the first creature shot and I spent a month on it. And I sort of got really worried, like, oh no, I can't catch up. And it took me ages to figure out how to do it. And then eventually, once I got, okay, I could do one shot, I was then able to do like 3 or 4 shots a day to do all the other ones.
The big problem for me was tentacles, and there's no plug-in for tentacles, but there is a plug-in for rope. And then what you do is within that, there's one setting for gravity. So I turned it to 0 and noticed that the rope suddenly did all this beautiful undulating movement that looked just like a tentacle. So it creates a complicated animation, but it's actually not that complicated to create. It looks cleverer than it is.
I see all the flaws in everything. Like, I look at stuff now and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I got away with that. But we did.
Sound, in a weird way, becomes more important than visuals. Like, you can paint a really big scale world through what you hear. You don't have to see it all. You forgive a bad image if you can clearly hear the sound well, but you don't forgive a great image if the sound is terrible.
There's a scene in the film when the van gets flipped by monsters' tentacles. Show us on screen how you created that here.
The idea was to shoot it like it was really happening. So these guys get in the back of the van, pretend that the creature is lifted up the truck. So all I'm really doing is animating the truck upwards. Yeah. And the rope simulation works itself out around the truck. Then once I'm happy with that, then you tell the computer to treat the tentacles and deform them in the same way that the rope is deformed.
Yes.
So now the tentacles are kind of sticking to that same movement. And then you render it properly with a proper truck, and you get this kind of thing.
But so that's a kind of, it's a Jurassic Park moment, again, done in your front room, essentially by you working on your own.
Yeah, but I'm sure for a lot of shots in a lot of films, it's just one person. I just had a lot to gain from doing it because it's my own movie, so I think there's a lot of people that are doing this, doing better work than I'm doing on their computers, but they're just probably not making a film around it.
Well, Gareth, you're very modest. I mean, it is a really exceptional piece of work. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, cheers. Thanks for coming. My main goal when we started this was, would I end up with a DVD that I'd be proud to put on a shelf and I wouldn't be embarrassed about, and it could be up there with my other films that I like. And I think we kind of did that. I'm pretty happy with it.
I think the thing, when you bump into people, fellow filmmakers who are struggling or just like frustrated, or there's something bad's happened, I feel like the thing you always end up saying is just don't give up. It's a simple thing to say and a hard thing to do, but there are so many times that I wanted to just throw in the towel.
Hi Godzilla fans, we're making a movie called Godzilla.
And you look at other people and you speak to other filmmakers, and if they're honest, they tell you their stories. Exactly the same stuff happened to them in some other form. And you realise it's really hard making a movie. No matter how hard it gets, and it will get hard, and there'll be lots of problems, but just know that this is what every movie you've ever loved has gone through. And this is part of the process, it's sort of the sport. And so, like, just carry on and keep going, and it'll all kind of work out if you just push through.